You're listening to China Manufacturing Decoded from the Sofeast Group. Hi, welcome back to another episode. It's episode 261 today, and we're asking the question, are you production ready? In order to know this, there are some deliverables you just can't skip as the buyer. Adrian here hosting, and Renaud joins me. Hi, Renaud.
Yeah, hi. So, well, that's actually a topic that comes back sort of all the time as you move a new, let's say, electrical, electronic, mechanical products into production. You always say, okay, where are we at the point? When are we going to be at the point of launching mass production, getting out of the pre-production phases, right? So when is it actually ready for production? But actually, we haven't talked much about this on the podcast. So,
well, after 4 years or so, it's probably time then.
Right. Yeah.
But this sounds to me, this is kind of like a typical question and conversation that we would have with our customers. So you're absolutely right. It definitely bears discussion. So, I mean, why does this matter? That's a great way to start off. Why do we need to even be discussing this?
Oh, it goes back to why do we even follow a new product introduction process, right? Why not do like, I don't know, there's some product categories where you don't really need to worry about these things. Let's say, for example, if you buy t-shirts, okay, simple product, does not need any tooling. I mean, except for very simple tooling, maybe for certain types of printing, but otherwise it does not need special tooling. Just, there's like hundreds of thousands, maybe more, of factories that can do the cutting, skewing, and trimming job, right? So for a t-shirt, once you know what kind of style, okay, it's going to be sort of this style, this kind of cut, this color, this print, this is going to be the labels, etc. You just give that pack, the tech pack, they call it, give that to a factory. Maybe you source the fabric, send it to them, or maybe you just let them do everything. They go to their house, they say, I need this kind of fabric in this color, this much, blah, blah, blah. They buy the accessories, they get everything. They make some samples. Now, the buyers still need to be careful. They're very careful not to say, you're okay to go to production when you want, right? They say, wait. First, send us maybe a first sample in the medium size, okay, in black or whatever, or available color, okay, but the exact fabric. So we kind of see, at least for medium, is it going to be the right fit, etc. And then they go into, okay, now here's the gradation for the key measurements for, extra small, medium, large, etc. And then the factory has to prepare a set of pre-production samples, send it to the buyer. They need to check if the fit is okay, and so on and so forth. And when it's all okay, they basically say, okay, you can go ahead. We already issued the order, probably to get you motivated to go through all this. And here's the, let's see, 30% deposit, or here's the letter of credit that is open, and it's okay for production. Okay. Also, the colors. Yeah, I forgot something very important. They need to see maybe fabric swatches or something like that of the exact fabric and the exact color to confirm that it does look good, right? So there's a few things like that, plus maybe the packaging, right? Maybe some samples that are fully packed or something, just to make sure the factory really has sort of golden samples, the color is okay, the fabric is okay, the fit is okay, the packaging is okay, etc. So that they have everything under their eyes and they just replicate that. Okay. So this is, even for a simple product like a t-shirt, as a buyer, you still need to be careful. You need to guide the factory. You need to tell them this is our process. Okay. But this is really kids kind of job, like really, really simple job compared to the case where you actually develop a new kind of electromechanical product, right? So again, it could be, I don't know, a custom designed computer accessory, a custom designed kitchenware product, whatever, something maybe purely mechanical to use maybe in people's garage or at the gym or something like that, right? Okay, so for these types of products, you need to be more careful, more structured, right? And what might happen with these types of products is that you might have, let's say you do just like a t-shirt buyer, right? You just want some sample. Okay, the sample looks good. It works nice. Okay, just go ahead. Whoa, you are exposing yourself to big risks, right?
Yeah.
Big risks. You might find that, yeah, they've made, 5 good samples, 10 good samples, but when they make 1,000 products, well, suddenly there's like 20% defectives, right?
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything.
Because, yeah, and when they sent you 10 samples, maybe it took them quite a bit of time to rework and they sent you the samples when they were good, right? But when it's mass production, it's different. That doesn't work the same way. Because when you rework, when you have all kinds of issues, you're also going to have reliability issues. Okay. You're going to have delays because they're going to say, oh, well, actually the manufacturing process, the way you want this to be, I don't know, to be electroplated, actually it doesn't work very nicely. We have 50% rejects, blah, 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 because you say you cannot accept it. So actually the price has to be whatever, an extra $1 because of that. And, we're going to be way later because in assembly, actually, these parts, because of the maybe poor dimensional control, they don't fit nicely together, or we didn't think about that. But yeah, we would need some kind of smart jig to I don't know, insert this magnet into this slot of the product or something like this, right? Or maybe there's so much manual soldering, it takes forever. We should try to have a automatic soldering machine, but the product is kind of curved, so the 2-dimensional one we have doesn't work. We need a 3-dimensional one. Blah blah blah. Okay, in the meantime, it's going to be very slow. Sorry, we said you would get it by 1st of May. Actually, maybe it's going to be sometime in June, probably, right? And so on and so on, right? Oh, and you didn't tell us that you could not accept this kind of little, I don't know, blemish on the surface. So the supplier of that, I don't know, wooden part that really looks nice on the product, well, the supplier tells us that they cannot do it and they just don't want to work on this anymore. So we need to go back to square one with that component, source a new supplier, because we did not think of sourcing a backup supplier. And then again, we're back to, maybe we're losing 1 or 2 months just because of that. Okay, and maybe the new supplier will be 30% or 50% more expensive or even longer. Or maybe we just cannot find any supplier that accepts to do it. Okay, so these are just some examples, right? Kind of typical examples. There's going to be some other examples. It's got to be, let's say it's electrical and you need to pass some tests about electrical safety, fire safety, etc. Well, maybe you did not design the product the right way for that. And then you cannot pass the test and you cannot legally put the product on the market. So now you're due for, heavy redesign. So that these are examples. Again, I could go on and on, but these are some very common, very typical ones.
Well, we've spoken before that it's a complicated process bringing new products to market, the MPI process, as we refer to it. I'll leave links to discussions and written content. We've even got a graphic, which some listeners hopefully have seen, which actually outlines all of the different, or at least most of the different activities involved when you're starting from product concept and going straight through to mass production. it's complicated stuff. So you're absolutely right that it constitutes a big risk if you just go to your manufacturer and say, yep, okay, that's my order. Just go ahead, press this go button. That's great for them, but potentially terrible for you, actually. And some of the deliverables and validations that you're going to go through kind of signposts to help you understand and ensure that you are ready for production, right?
Very much. And basically, there's a few questions, right? And there's more than that, right? Any organized manufacturer will have their own forums where the project team will review, right? Review the project progress. Okay, we've gone through this. The tooling has been made. The tooling samples have been approved. The reliability tests, the compliance testing, pre-production, like pilot runs on this custom component and that custom component, and the assembly process and the testing process. Blah blah blah. Okay, this sort of checklist if you want, but if we keep it at a relatively high level, there's a few big topics, right? One is the process actually repeatable? Okay. The thing is, when you design, for example, a custom, aluminum part that has to be die cast, okay, and then you want it to be very dimensionally accurate, and you want very low porosity and things like that. Okay. Now, die casting factory, and let's say the tooling is very well made and so on, and the die casting factory does a really good job fine-tuning the process for sampling, and they send you some samples and it's nice. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
But how repeatable is that? Now, maybe the process window is very narrow, by which I mean that the parameters needed to hit, exactly the right deliverable, the right kind of product quality are very hard to nail. And on one batch, yeah, they can do it. And another batch with a different temperature, humidity around, and just the material properties might be slightly different, and so on and so forth. The setup on the machine, is not adjusted as nicely or something. They can't get it to run, with a proper result. Okay, well, is that the die casting factory's fault? Is it the tool maker's fault? Well, I would say this is the designer's fault. The process is not robust, and it's very easy to get it, to get a wrong result. Okay. So if you just do one pilot pre-production batch and you say, okay, it's fine, everything's good. Yeah, okay, it's ready to go into mass production, and we get some big orders. So, let's make 20,000 pieces right away. You might run into very big problems. Okay. So that's the first one, repeatability of the process. The second one, in general, is consistency of the result in general. So it's not just about, okay, the die cast part, etc. It's all through the part fabrication process and the assembly process, even the packaging process, all through that. What is the percentage of the products that are good the first time? Okay. If you see that on average, every product has to be reworked 2 times, that's really, really bad. That's really bad. So number one, of course, is going to be slower. It's going to be more expensive in manufacturing. At the end of the day, the buyer is going to end up, paying in one way or another. Reliability is going to be poor because if it's been reworked, in general, these units will not be as reliable, meaning that once they are in the field, used by users, etc., they will tend to fail earlier. So there's a lot of issues with that. And that's why a key indicator is the first pass yield. The first pass means, all good the first time. it's a capability, process capability index, we call it, right? So you look at, for example, all the assembly, testing, packaging operations. Let's say imagine it's all in a line, the materials flow, and then you have the final product coming out at the end of it. Well, you want to know what percentage of them are all good the first time and never need to be reworked. Okay. And if 100% are all good the first time, you have a 100% yield, first pass yield. If 90% of them need to be reworked, you have a 10% first pass yield. And when you do a first pilot production run, maybe on 20 pieces, 50 pieces, 100 pieces, it's very common to have a first pass yield around 10 to 30%, right? And of course, the team keeps track of the main issues and, think of what rework of the process itself they need to do. Where are the issues coming from? Maybe it's from this supplier, that supplier, etc. They need to work through it. Okay. So you really need to make sure quality is okay, because if half of the products need to be reworked, this is not the time to ramp up the order quantity, right? Because maybe you ramp up the order quantity and then you go there like sort of quickly without taking the time to fix the issues at the root. Maybe you make 10,000 pieces, and this time 70% of them have to be reworked. That happens sometimes, and that's really bad at every level. It's going to be slower. There's going to be delays. It's going to be extra cost for the manufacturer. It's going to be terrible. A lot of scrap, etc. There's going to be the temptation for the manufacturer to just say, well, some of these, it's hard to rework, but, just when we ship, the buyer is going to do their inspection. Yeah, okay. But just before we ship, we're going to sold some of them in some of the cartons and ship it like that, whatever. It's just bad at every level, right? So that's the second one is the consistency, the quality, the capability of the manufacturing process. Okay. Number three, talked about that a few times, is reliability, durability.
Yeah.
Okay. We see some customers that don't have experience developing new products. They will say, we need to do this compliance test. For example, we need to sell in the European Union. So we need to test for these technical standards under the radioelectric directive and low voltage directive and maybe electromagnetic compatibility directive and so on. Oh, it's going to plug into a wall. It's going to be sold in the US. Yeah, we need to do something like a UL certification or ETL, CSA, etc. But reliability is it's not compulsory. It's just something voluntary that we're going to do. Let's just deliver to the users and they will tell us, if there are problems.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Right. It's great for the users, right? And, we got some samples earlier, and we got already, some of them have been used for 6 months. Got no problem with them. Okay. That's good, of course. That's part of reliability testing. But is this representative of the expected use case, use conditions, etc., of the products in the target market? I don't really think so. Mm-hmm. Right? So you wanna what's the word for that? It's like going to Las Vegas and going to a casino, right? Yeah. And saying, okay, put 1 million on red, right? Let's see what happens.
Well, 50-50 chance.
That's already not bad. Yeah, maybe that's not the right comparison.
Rolling the dice, I think.
Yeah. If you're going to fulfill these products, maybe on Amazon, you might be hit with a lot of 1-star reviews and have very high returns and complaints, and Amazon might even kick you out in that case. If you're going to sell to a retailer, same thing. The chargebacks are going to be very heavy. It's going to be very, very expensive. And same thing, they're just going to kick you out. If you sell to a big company, maybe for their users, yeah, same thing. Maybe they have a contract, they will make you pay through the nose for all the repairs and the returns and blah, blah, blah. Imagine, I don't know, you do, just an example, I was talking with someone about something like that a few years ago. Someone that was selling LED lighting that goes inside buses. Well, if the LED light stops working very early in the life, then it's going to be a lot of, sending the bus back to the depot and having the technician go into the bus and remove that lighting and change it to a new lighting and so on and so forth. That's actually a lot of costs on the bus company, right? Do you think they're going to keep buying from you? And how much are they going to charge back to you for that? Right? So be very careful. Make sure you actually sell and deliver a good product that doesn't disappoint the users by failing too early. Failing doesn't necessarily mean like completely stops working, but maybe some kind of degradation of performance. It's too, I don't know, fragile, brittle. Some stresses just make it break or something. Okay.
And consumers are kind of zero tolerance these days, because not only will they give you a bad review, but they're not going to buy from you again if that happens.
Oh, and returns are very expensive.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, talk about reliability and all the testing that comes with it, then we also need to talk about compliance and safety, right? There's a bit of overlap. We talked about that before. Some reliability issues can lead to safety disasters. Okay. Just think of that example of the bikes in France. We talked about it just a few episodes ago. Yes. The frame could actually break. Okay. So that's both a reliability and a safety issue, right? Okay. So basically, are you sure that you have all the compliance requirements fulfilled for the markets where you're going to sell the product? Or are you opening yourself to having maybe customers stopping your product, maybe your retailers refusing to list your product just because you cannot produce the required documentation? If there is some kind of safety issue, are you going to make it very easy for people to actually sue you, right? And because you put a non-compliant product on the market, even if it's just, you say, it's just consumer goods, it's not medical or aerospace or something like that, right? Who cares? Well, no. If your product, I don't know, the batteries get on fire and they put an entire apartment building on fire, I mean, imagine what's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, right? People are going to go after you, right? So make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's, right?
And it's not something you can do retrospectively. Like you can't, to be fair, by now, if you've launched your product and it's been produced and then you're putting it on the market and then you find out that you've got a compliance problem, sure, you can go back and test it. But the problem is, what if the test comes up negative? And then what? Then you've got to redesign the product perhaps, and then you're back to square one. So, I mean, it's not something that you can kind of seek forgiveness on.
Oh, for sure. So I talked about compliance, talked about reliability, quality, etc. The manufacturing process, as well as the product design, are they frozen? Have they been validated properly? Or are you still going to have to make some tweaks, Oh, we're in the certification process. We get some feedback. We need to make this change on the product, on this part of the product. Oh, it's a custom design part that has, tooling with it. Oh, we need to change the tooling. Oh, and it's going to change also the way to test that module of the product. Oh, so you have a lot of things sort of in the air. You are definitely nowhere close to being able to go into mass production. Definitely not ready, right? final one is about the supply chain, the component suppliers, module suppliers, and so on. Now, let's say you spend a lot of time fine-tuning, I don't know, a very specific kind of camera module. You heavily depend on an ODM supplier that owns the camera module, but they made some changes to it to make a very nice stack that is very thin and works nicely for your application. Maybe it's wide angle, maybe it's very fast shutter. Okay, whatever. You have certain performance requirements and they tweak it and so on and so forth. Okay. But wait a minute. Have you even made sure that they can make this consistently, high quality? Are they heavily in debt, going out of business? Are they actually switching to another line of business, and this camera product, they will just tell you, oh, it's, kind of that component is end of life, and sorry, we're not going to try to find something else. We'll just stop making that whole module because now we've gone into whatever solar panels and we make a lot more money. We've invested everything in that activity, and this camera thing is kind of dying anyway. It's too much competition. We don't make any money, blah, blah, blah. Right? Oh, so your entire product, your entire project is going to hit a big obstacle here, right? So, and it's not, the topic here is, have you identified which critical suppliers you will rely on? And what if something goes wrong? How far are you from having a backup, right? That's the idea, really. That's the idea. So that's the few points that I wanted to cover here.
Yeah, and if you put them all together and you consider them almost like a sort of checklist or something, right? If you've not ticked off these points and you're sure that the demands of each one have been fulfilled, then if you go into production, you're giving yourself more risks. I think that's the long and short of it, right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. It's about risk reduction and going into mass production, putting a lot of money into materials that will go onto the production floor and goes through a manufacturing process that itself has not been qualified, based on a product design that itself has not been fully qualified and validated. That's really asking for trouble. That's really asking for trouble. You might have to just throw everything away, scrap everything, or scrap, half of the components. Who knows? Right? So that's really very, very high risk.
Yeah. So before we finish, it's probably just worth mentioning as well that the manufacturing pilot run, or pilot runs, depending on how many the manufacturer decides to actually run, are probably a very useful process here, because the pilot run or runs are going to cover a lot of the points that you've discussed, right? So they're going to check on if the process is repeatable. They're going to give you an insight into the quality, the manufacturing process. So that's definitely something to think about.
So there's, let's say, pilots, right? The idea about piloting is to do something on a small scale, just as a trial, to see how things are working, right? And it's a form of validation. Okay, it's a form of validation. When you when you make prototypes just to develop, design and develop the product, you kind of verify, okay, is this performance as what we were aiming for, right? So I don't know. With this product, the Bluetooth signal has to go 50 meters away if there's no obstacle. Okay, so we make prototypes and we actually test them for that, right? And it's a verification. But then you go into sort of pilot validations, right? So let's put together some full prototypes, see actually if they can do the job as needed, and let's get some feedback from users, right? So let's get users to validate that actually the engineering of the product actually is okay. Then you go into another kind of pilot. And by the way, when it doesn't work, it's not fully validated, you go through another cycle, right? You plan for what to change, you redesign, you make prototypes again, etc., etc. You test it again and so on. Then you go to the next one which is let's try to kind of validate the manufacturing process at a certain point. Let's get the tooling done. Let's get some prototypes made from that. Let's get the aesthetics and the touch and feel and so on, validated as much as possible. Maybe the user interface of the software is not fully there yet, but it should be mostly there by this point. Let's try to validate as much as we can here. And then you go into, okay, let's really make maybe 40 pieces, 100 pieces, and then maybe going up into the quantities, some pilot runs really with the manufacturing processes and the testing processes in place, right? And again, you do it once, maybe 2 times, 3 times, until you can confidently answer the big questions that I asked, right? Quality, consistency, the repeatability of the processes, reliability, compliance, the supply chain, and so on. And then you say, okay, now let's ramp up. If it's big quantity productions, let's go into the thousands, the many thousands, and so on, right? Mm-hmm. But don't go into very high quantity if all of these things have not been validated.
Absolutely. Great way to end there. So definitely a number of deliverables and validations to consider, especially if you're launching a new product this year, 2025. So, yep, a good kind of mental checklist there. Let's wrap it up, Renaud. And I will, as normal, include links to relevant information in the show notes. So please go check those out and click on those links.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review, and share because it will really help others discover us too.